You all know what the Pinside Top 100 is, right? It's an amazing resource on a fantastic website. But if you'll just humour me for a second or two, I will just assume that one or two don't know what it is and just go and explain it. Well, the Top 100 is as it sounds. Well, almost. It's a ranking system. It's a league table, if you like, of the finest pinball machines that have ever been made. Now, I think it's been going on for so long now that it's more than surpassed 100. Last time I looked on there were almost 400 pinball machines that have been ranked. I have spent far too much time on it than is healthy. Anytime I'm remotely interested in the game, whether I'm sort of pondering getting a new game or wondering whether I should buy game A or game B, I'll go on to the Pinside Top 100 and I will read the reviews. I would actually say that when you go in depth into the individual reviews, it plays some part in my decision-making process. That is how influential it is. However, as amazing as the Pinside Top 100 is, for me, it's slightly flawed. And it's going to be for you too, because there is no way that that Pinside Top 100 is going to precisely mirror what you think about every single pinball machine. So, because I've got the luxury of having a YouTube channel, I've decided to make my own list. Now, this list has one very, very simple rule to it. The pinball machines that I rank, and as you will see, I'm going to go for 50, have to have lived in this house. Doesn't mean I have to have owned them. Somebody could have lent them to me, and I have lots of very, very kind friends who do precisely that. But the pinball machine has to have lived here. And there's a really good reason for that. I don't think it's fair or reasonable to assess a game that you might have had in your house for a month with a game that you might have played once or twice in a noisy location where you can't really hear the call-outs, where you can't get a full grasp of the rules. I think you're comparing apples with oranges, basically. So that's the rule. And there's no getting past it. It has to have lived in this house. Now, I'm not relatively fortunate, I'm extremely fortunate to have had at least 35 games through this house now. So, I think we can eventually get to the top 50, and we're going to be doing it on this fantastic board, which you can just see here. Are you familiar with Top Gear Star and the reasonably priced car? They rank and they rate all the fastest cars. They get the Lamborghini and they get the Porsche in. They get all the latest cars in, and you get to find out what's the best. They write it up on a well, I've got a little magnetic board then, and they chuck it up there. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. However, in this first video, I'm going to be covering 3 games. Going forward, this series will cover 1 game per video, but I thought it might look a bit odd if I just place up one name up there. So we're going to go with 3 different machines today. Thereafter, each video has its own individual game. So let's just have a little look at the criteria that goes into making the Pinside Top 100, because this is why I want it to be my list. So this is all it is. This is my opinion on games that have come through this house. The way Pinside do it, and I totally understand why they do it, it has to be this way. It's a very, very mathematical procedure, and I think they crunch the numbers. Everybody gives everything a rating. What they do is they number crunch, and then the top game gets it. And at the moment, it's Godzilla. It has been Medieval Madness for some time. These are the factors and the contributing aspects that go into deciding a game on Pinside. So you would vote and rank it on things like animation, artwork, audio quality, audio variation, back glass artwork, cabinet artwork, fun, gameplay, game rules, longevity, lighting, music, playfield artwork, playfield layout, sound, speech, theme, toys, gimmicks. It's more extensive than just that list. However, you get to see the kind of detail that they're going into there. Now, I think this probably plays into the reason why maybe the Pinside Top 100 doesn't mirror my own, because I'm not looking for exactly those things in a pinball machine, which is precisely why I've decided to do my own list on this. I think the fun that they had in there, that's a great one. It's probably my #1 factor in assessing a pinball machine. Is it fun? So that's one of mine. Is it addictive? Is it humorous? That counts for me. I must be honest. I don't I don't put too much stock by something having really poor artwork. That's not going to make me think a machine is poor. I can still enjoy a pinball machine with really poor artwork. Let's be perfectly frank about this. The artwork on Congo is awful, but I love that game. It's a brilliant game. And spoiler alert, yes, I have had Congo in this house actually twice. So that shows you how much I like that game. There are a number of games that have terrible artwork that might be brilliant games, and there are a few games that have brilliant artwork which, let's be fair, I don't really enjoy. So the artwork is not a massive factor for me. It might be for you. I totally respect that. But as I say, this is my list. Things that I love about a pinball machine that would encourage me to rank it higher than another one. Does the pinball machine have charm? Does it have personality? What are the toys like? What are the mechanisms like? Is the game approachable? I think this is really important. Everybody that comes into this house is not a pinball aficionado. I have a lot of friends who don't really not into pinball at all. However, they'll come round, they'll have a pizza, we'll have a beer, and they will play a pinball machine. I'm lucky to have more than one machine, as you can see. So what's really interesting is when somebody comes over to my house, if they're not into pinball, what do they want to play? And I really have found out over the last 2 or 3 years what games are approachable and what aren't. Something that I might like because it might have a really in-depth Lyman Sheets code or something might not be appealing to somebody who just wants to play a game for 5 minutes and have a beer. I've learned that. So this is a really important thing. How approachable is the game? What are the shots and positions on the game? When I say that, the position of the shots. How many times have I walked up to a machine and I've thought the shots are exactly where they need to be. Whereas sometimes it just feels like the shots are in an alien position. I can't quite dial them in. That's important for me. Rules. Rules are massively important. And when I say rules, I mean how easy are the rules to understand. I think that's vital. And maybe that plays into a little bit on theme, but I'm not overly fussed about theme. Does the game have achievable goals? Is it rewarding? Is it frustrating? Nobody wants to continually play a frustrating game, right? In fact, I've got one just out of shot on camera at the moment. Very, very frustrating. And because it's frustrating, I don't find it fun. Because it's not fun, it won't stay around for long. And therein lies the final, well, I say the penultimate question. Do I regret the machine leaving? So once I've had a machine in this house and it's gone, do I think, oh, you know what? I miss that. I miss that game. So those are going to be the determining factors that once I've written the name in my whiteboard pen onto one of my magnets there and put it on the board, those will be the deciding factors that determine where on that board the game resides. And if, let's say, I'm in a position where I find that there are 2 or 3 games close together, this is going to be the very last deciding factor. It will be this. I'm going to assume that every game is worth the same money. So, because otherwise it's just not fair. You might have a game that you really enjoy that costs a quarter as much as a game that you don't enjoy so much. However, you'd probably have it because you'd be able to make money on it. Let's be honest, Addams Families, for instance, go for an awful lot of money. However, that's not to say I would prefer it. I've never had an Addams Family in this house, actually, so that can't be on the list. That's why I use it as an example. However, an Addams Family might go for £7,000, £8,000, £9,000, whatever the case may be, but I might have a pinball machine that costs £1,000 that I have found a lot more fun, but you'd always choose the Addams Family because of the money. So in the deciding factor, I'm going to assume that every single pinball machine is worth £1. £1. I'm taking the money out of it. So then I will ask myself, if you can't sell them or they're all worth £1 and you are stuck with one pinball machine for the rest of your life, which one will it be? And that will probably determine whether it goes higher or lower than another. There's other factors that go into it. Is it addictive? How satisfying the shots are. Has it got the next game factor? All of this stuff is going to go into the way that I assess games, and that's how this series is going to go. But always remember, the game must have lived in this house. Anyway, without any further delay, let's deal with the first 3 games that are going to go on Gonzo's Top 50. And thank you, Collie Wobble's made that wonderful sign. See it up there for me? It's probably just out of shot at the moment. I'll edit some footage in. You'll see the signs going up. Don't worry about that. Let's crack on with the very, very first 3 pinball machines that go on the top 50, what I think in my house are the top 50 pinball machines of all time. So, first up is a stone cold classic, and that's Medieval Madness. Look, there's nothing apart from a load of blank magnets and some drawings my daughter has done on the board, so I'm not going to be revealing very much. If the first thing we do is slap that Medieval Madness straight on the board up there, that's the top. Now, my reasoning for doing this, I think is relatively sound reasoning. It's been top of the charts in the Pinside Top 100 for quite some time. However, it's been knocked off its perch, or recently, by Godzilla, which you'll be pleased to know we also have in what we call Flipperama HQ, Flipperama Towers. So we will be reviewing Godzilla, of course, but if anything is going to beat Medieval Madness, it's going to have to be a very, very good game. Now, we're going to discuss Medieval Madness first, but just to let you know, a little spoiler, we'll also be throwing Judge Dredd up on the board, and also Popeye, my first pinball machine, by the way. So, first of all, let's have a little chat about Medieval Madness. Now, I don't just want this to be, even though I will decide where it goes on the board, I do think it's probably fair. There'll be some people that maybe are watching this video and would like to know somebody else's opinion on the game. What I'm going to be doing as we progress with this series, I'll be asking other people to send me a little voice note on their phone and let me know what they think about it. So in this particular instance, I've asked excellent pinball player, pinball aficionado, somebody who's been in the hobby, I think since he was 13, and somebody who's appeared on this channel on numerous occasions, Craig Pullen, to give me his thoughts on Medieval Madness, on Judge Dredd and Popeye. But in terms of my own criteria for this game, let's have a little chat about Medieval Madness. Now, I'm not going to assume that everybody knows everything about it, but I sort of think you probably know what it is. So I won't go into too fine a detail as we will in the individual videos. So does it have that next game factor, Medieval Madness? Yes, it does. But most importantly, is Medieval Madness fun? Yes, it's incredibly good fun. The call-outs are amusing. There's a lot of humour in it. Whenever you play the game, there's no doubt about it that you are in this immersive world that's been created for you. And in terms of the castle, which you got to destroy, it is one of the best toys and one of the best mechanisms in pinball. One of the other things I wanted to know is, does it have satisfying shots? Medieval Madness has got some wonderful ramps. They just feel right the way they flow round the play field. Hey, look, it's a standard, what you would call a standard fan layout, but there's no problem with that. If that's done correctly, and it really is a Medieval Madness, it's extremely satisfying. Does it have achievable goals? Yes, it does. I mean, a lot of people just play it and just bash the castle. That's fine as well, and that sort of gives it that next game factor, and that also makes it, what I was speaking about earlier, it's an approachable game. If you don't know much about pinball, it's very, very appealing to bash that castle, to hit that ramp, to listen to the call-outs. It really is. It's approachable. Is it intuitive in terms of the rules? Relatively, but I think it's such a simple game in that aspect, it probably doesn't matter too much, but certainly for newbies, very, very good. The playfield design's great. The shot positionings are amazing. If I was going to be critical, we'll discuss Attack from Mars a little bit more, because people do say it's one or the other. I think when the ball goes into when it goes into the saucer, I think it slows the game down a little bit. If I was going to be hypercritical with Medieval Madness, it sort of pops out the back and trickles down, whereas Attack from Mars, it sort of chucks it at you back at the flippers at pace, doesn't it? But I mean, everybody needs to have played this game. It is an addictive game. It's up the top, and it's been in and around the top for very, very good reasons. It's a Brian Eddy design. It's so good. Chicago Gaming Company have remade it. Obviously, I was going to say it's deservedly at the top of the board at the moment. There's only one game there, but I don't think I'll be giving it any spoilers. I will tell you now, I'm not going to put Judge Dredd ahead of, or Popeye, in fact, ahead of Medieval Madness. We're going to have to wait for another video to see if something else can knock that off of its top perch. But anyway, you've heard what I think about Medieval Madness. Let's listen to what Craig thinks about it.
Okay, so Medieval Madness. Medieval Madness, realistically, since I've been collecting pinball machines, has always been regarded as the #1 pinball machine. And I think the reason for that is the execution of the theme, with the art package and the sounds, and just, yeah, the integration of it all. How it kind of is perfect. Medieval Madness, I think, and the comedy as well. I think the comedic and the fun element of it make it a game that is accessible to lots and lots of people, and one that many people would obviously want to own. I think that the fan layout by Brian Eddy is executed really, really well. The rules are fairly easy to understand and accessible. And obviously it's got this incredible toy, of the likes that realistically they don't make anymore. That castle, the first time you see the castle explode is it's fantastic. It really is. It's a real spectacle, a proper pinball moment when you see that. So you can understand why it's always ranked up there as one of the very, very, very best. For me, in my opinion, there is a flaw to it in terms of the gameplay. It seems like, what you should do is shoot each of the shots 3 times in order to work your way and progress through the game. But actually the payoff of that, it just isn't enough. Whereas actually just shooting the castles over and over and making it to the King of Pain is, in terms of from a scoring perspective, the thing to do. And so it kind of, for me, who's played it an awful lot, has kind of been tarnished a little bit because of that. And I know that Lyman Sheets, who is the programmer on that game, was always very, very disappointed when people played it that way, because he always strived in order for the game to be wholly used. And to be honest, it's certainly in competition it isn't. But that's just my opinion. But I can absolutely understand why Medieval Madness is considered one of the best of all time.
And next up, we have Judge Dredd. And I'm not going to be giving any spoilers here if I just go and put Judge Dredd. I've just actually knocked the D off of the magnet there with my hand. I'll have to repen that. But there it is, Judge Dredd, just underneath there. Okay, so let's have a little chat about Judge Dredd. So Judge Dredd was maybe my 4th or 5th pinball machine. Judge Dredd was the first pinball machine I actually took apart. I completely stripped the playfield. I thought, oh my word, what have I done here? Fortunately, I took a lot of photos. I did an awful lot to that game. I modified it. I put a lot of the Comet lights in it, used the Comet matrix system on it. I had the wire forms powder coated. I'll be popping up some pictures as I talk about it now. Unfortunately, when I had this game, it was before I'd sort of started doing anything with this channel. Otherwise, I would have taken better footage with a better camera. So all we've got is some mobile phone footage of the game. But the game you're seeing, the Judge Dredd that you'll see in the clips on here, this is my Judge Dredd. I really enjoyed it. Was it fun? Hey, yeah, you bet your life it was fun. I heard at some point somebody say that they didn't consider Judge Dredd to be a bona fide and proper pinball machine because it didn't have pop bumpers. And it doesn't. I didn't care. I'll be honest with you, when I first played it, I didn't even notice. A multiple flipper game, and I've got to say, a lot of the times when you play games, some of the games with upper flippers, they're a bit of a gimmick. I thought this worked really well on Judge Dredd, and Judge Dredd has one of my favourite shots. I love a long shot in pinball, and it's a sniper tower shot. A very, very good shot. It feels satisfying. It feels rewarding. Are the rules intuitive? No. No, I have to say they're not. I think for a newbie playing it, I don't think it's the most intuitive thing to do. But what I would always say with games is, do the playfield lights tell you what you need to know? And I do want to differentiate between the playfield lights and the screen, because I'm not good enough to look at the screen during gameplay. I need the playfield lights to tell me that. And I think it does a reasonable job of that. Is there humour in it? Actually, I think there is a bit of humour there, particularly when it gets to, let's say, you're Judge Dredd and you're trying to arrest people for different crimes. When you get to some of the more risque crimes, I do. Does it have the outright humour of a Medieval Madness? No, but there are some fun aspects to it. I remember the one I got the colour DMD, but it was the LED one, and it really made it stand out. Some great animations in it, and actually the music's not too bad either. I don't mind the soundtrack. Do I find it frustrating? I didn't find the game frustrating at all. Are there achievable goals? Maybe not. Maybe not. Some of it can be a little bit tenuous, the rules on it. Is it charming? Does it have charm? Well, Medieval Madness certainly has a ton of charm. I wouldn't say that Judge Dredd has much charm, but I'll tell you what, even though I don't put an awful lot of stock by this, but I do think the art package is very good. I do think the artwork on the cabinet is great, and I do think the back glass is amazing on a Judge Dredd as well. And I think if you light it properly and pick out some proper, put some LEDs in the back glass and pick out, put some coloured ones in there, you can really make that pop and stand out. The playfield design, shot position, it's okay. It's okay. It's a wide body pinball machine. You're getting a lot of pinball machine for your money. The gimmicks and toys, there's an interesting ball lock mechanism on it. I should remember it. It's called Dead World or something like that. I think it works. I think it works really, really well, actually. I did really enjoy that part of it. There are better toys, there are better gimmicks, but it's really all about the shots, and there are an awful lot of shots on Judge Dredd. There are an awful lot of wire forms as well. Is it addictive? Not to the same extent that a lot of other games are addictive. You'll certainly have another game, but it does have a really interesting mode on it where there's not just a start button, there's another button underneath which takes you into a sort of frenzied mode with lots of multi-balls in it. I think that's really good. I enjoyed it. Here's the question. Did I miss it? Did I miss it when it went? And I've got to say, I probably didn't. I'd have it back, but I'd also say the same about Medieval Madness. As good as Medieval Madness is, when it went, I didn't really miss it. But Judge Dredd, a very, very good game, an excellent game, in fact. Let's find out what Craig thinks about it.
Okay, so Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is a super pin, one of those wide body Williams era games, 1990s. And I think that Judge Dredd is a really packed game. There's a huge amount on there. The ball lock system with that dead world that goes around is really, really cool when it works properly. And you've got that crane that comes across, and you've got the sniper tower at the back. You know, it's got an amazing amount of stuff jam-packed into the game. In terms of enjoyment and playing through the modes, if you play it that way, if you're playing it through the game and playing through the modes, there's actually a lot of fun and joy in it. But again, for me, it is a flawed game, because ultimately if you just shoot that left ramp over and over and over, and if it is repeatable and you've got strong flippers on it, then basically that becomes the scoring strategy. So Judge Dredd will always be a B-list game for me because of that. And if you compare it to some of those other games at that time, it doesn't look as attractive in my opinion. But yeah, Judge Dredd is a cool game, good fun.
And finally in this video, we have Popeye, the much maligned Popeye. Now, I'm going to put Popeye just there. So it is the third best of the three that I'm reviewing today on this video. Although I will tell you now, another little spoiler, Popeye will not be the bottom of this list. Out of the 30-odd machines I've had, Popeye won't be bottom. I'm going to see if I can dig out some footage, but Popeye was the first game that I owned. So it's a bit like your first car or the first album that you buy, isn't it? That it retains a special place in your heart. You look back on it with a certain element of nostalgia. And I'll never forget the time I showed it to the kids. In fact, I actually recorded the first time I ever showed it to the children when we brought it into the lounge. And they absolutely loved it.
You've got the pinball machine. That's so cool. Can I please give it a go?
On then.
Got to press that to launch the ball. It's a wide body again. It's not a conventional game. It really isn't. There's something called the animal kicker, which is down the left-hand side. It's a gimmick, and I don't mean gimmick in a good way. It's not an amazing mechanism. It really isn't. A lot of the playfield is obscured, and because it's got an upper playfield. But I would say it is an upper playfield that is usable. A lot of them. I mean, for instance, the Mandalorian has an additional playfield on it. I don't find it particularly fit for purpose. It's a one flipper mechanism. I think it's a bit gimmicky. Whereas with Popeye, you can actually nudge and you can actually use the upper playfield and keep the ball live. And what I would say about the upper playfield, the shot for the extra ball is one of the better shots I've found in pinball, actually. So it does have that going for it. The orbits are excellent on Popeye as well. It can be a bit of a drain monster. I think the ball kick out from the ball lock can be absolutely brutal, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult than some of the others. Are the rules intuitive? No, they're not at all. But I've heard the theme criticised a lot. In many respects, that the theme lends itself to the modern day more than it did the old day. And basically, Popeye, for some reason, is an eco-warrior. He's looking to clean up the oil out of a river. He's looking to put animals in an ark. He wants to. He's basically gone very, very green. He cares about. It's almost like he cares about climate change. He cares about the environment, and that's the theme of it. I guess it gets a bit tenuous because he's eating spinach along the way, but I think that's quite fun. Collecting the spinach cans is not a bad aspect to it. Intuitive rules, no. Humour, a little bit, not so much. Satisfying shots, some of them. The ball launch is a little bit tedious. The way you lock the ball and get the ball up to the upper playfield is not particularly good. The ball into the animal kicker is not particularly good. It feels like it needs more ramps on it, if I'm honest. There are some satisfying shots. I've listed two of them. The orbit's satisfying, and of course the extra ball shot off of the upper playfield is a pretty good shot as well. Achievable goals, yes, you can achieve them, but it's not. The intuitive rule set sort of holds it back a little bit. Approachable for newbies, I think in a sense it probably is, because the art package looks decent. It's done. The playfield is almost put in the hull of a boat. I've seen it. I've seen children go and play this game, and they quite enjoy playing it. They don't particularly know what they're doing, but they enjoy playing it. The playfield design, it's got to be a no for that. It's not the best playfield design in the world, but it does have some decent shot positions. Gimmicks, toys, mechanisms. In this instance, I do think it lets itself down, because I do think the animal kicker is more of a gimmick than a toy. The upper playfield really does work very well, and I don't mind that it obscures the playfield, the lower playfield too much. I think that's absolutely fine. There's a sort of rotating, almost like a rotating roulette wheel, if you like, for the ball launch. It's a bit of a gimmick. It's not necessary. It doesn't need to be there. The mechanism is almost unnecessary, and it's just another area where the game can go wrong. I would advise everybody to try this game. Is it addictive? No, not really. So, I mean, it's falling down on a lot of factors here. The big question is with this one, did I miss it? Did I miss Popeye? I sort of did. And would I have it back in here? Probably not. It's a wide body. It takes up a lot of room. But I'm just wondering if there's part of me that missed it because it was my first pinball machine, because it was nostalgic. Maybe that played a big part in it. I'd certainly like the opportunity to play one again, because it's been a long time. I haven't played one for 3 or 4 years, and I certainly learnt an awful lot about pinball in that time, and my gameplay has improved, so it'd be interesting to see. There's a really good thread on pinballinfo.com, which is really good and extols the virtues of Popeye. That's a very, very good thread, so go and give that a search. If I find it, in fact I will, I'll find it and I'll put it in the link below. And there's a lot of love for Popeye in that thread, and certainly by the author of it. For me, it's the least best of those 3 pinball machines. But anyway, without further ado, let's find out what Craig Pullen thinks of Popeye.
Okay, so Popeye. Popeye is a game, if I'm honest, I haven't spent a huge amount of time on it. And I think that that's probably the case for a lot of people. They've made up their mind on Popeye because of the way that it looks, and because of the design elements of the playfield. They have decided that it is a turd, which is the kind of the general consensus of what Popeye is, because and it is very strange. I've obviously spent some time on it, and some of those lower playfield shots are very strange because you don't see where the ball is going because half of the playfield is effectively covered. So, there is quite a lot of design flaws perhaps on the playfield. But saying that, the few times that I have played it, I have enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed going for multi-ball and playing it that way, and so that there's some big payoffs there. I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of how to play the game. Sergeant Grizz on Pinball Info has done a huge write-up of why he loves Popeye so much. And I think that, I'm sure that I would love and appreciate the game so much more if I did have it and own it, and understand the rules a lot more. But yeah, I guess I do fall into that category of looking at it and not finding it a very attractive game, and from a design element point of view, I think that it is probably flawed.
And there you have it, the first 3 pinball machines on the wall of fame or the wall of shame, whatever you want to call it. Thank you very, very much for watching. I am very aware that it's taken me a long time to get this concept going and get it off the ground, but it has taken quite a lot of work, believe it or not, to do it. It's something I'm really looking forward to continuing, and it's just going to get better, I hope, with each and every one, the more games that go on there. But please don't forget the criteria for this. The game has to have lived in this house, and ultimately, and I thank Craig very much for all his input, it's going to be my decision what goes up there. But I also just want to point out it's subject to change, because that's what happens with pinball, right? You sort of change your mind, you get new favourites, something drops down the list a little bit, something new comes in, and I do think that's what it's all about. I'm going to give my honest opinion on it, but I am already aware that there's been a few games through here that I've had through this house, which I know are popular with some people and are not particularly popular with me. So there may well be some controversial choices, and you may well find, so please don't be offended if that happens, you may well find that one of your favourites is way below a game that you don't particularly rate. But hey, that's the thing, isn't it? When I learned this, going back to what I said at the start, that's what I find with the Pinside Top 100. I'm sure it's just an anomaly, but I'll actually screen grab it now, because right behind you there is the Pinside Top 100. I'm just going to screen grab that, because as I look at it now, and this has changed during the time I've been recording this video, Godzilla's at the top, and AC/DC, which has also been through this house, by the way, is in second place. So you're never going to agree with everything. I know a lot of people like AC/DC, but I also know there will be a hell of a lot of people watching this video who would probably not think that AC/DC is the second best pinball machine ever made. As I say, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Sorry for the wait. There'll be single videos next time. We'll just be looking at one single game and then building up that list. I'm going to go away now. I'm going to think what machine to do next, but I've got some wonderful machines to choose from. And just finally, before I go, I'd like to thank anyone and everybody that has helped me in just learn and sort of grow in this wonderful hobby, and particularly the people that have lent me games to enable me to do this. So I'm looking forward to getting this off the ground, and I hope you see your games up there at some point and they're in a place that you think they deserve to be. But at the moment, it's Medieval Madness 1, Judge Dredd 2 and Popeye in third place.